Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Shlomovich, and I specialize in helping busy women simplify plant-based living so they can improve their health, save time, and feel supported, even if their family isn't on board. Here on my channel, you'll find insightful interviews with inspiring vegans and practical tips on a variety of plant-based topics. Whether you're just starting out or looking to deepen your journey, my mission is to be your supportive resource and guide. Subscribe now and join me in living a healthier, more confident, plant-based life. Today, my special guest is Marcus Neves, who is an advocate based in Rio de Janeiro. With a background in law and a master's in sustainable development from the University of Sussex, Marcus combines his legal expertise with his interest in fiction to challenge societal norms. He is also a researcher at the Thrive Project, where he contributes to building a future that recognizes and respects the right of non-human beings. Marcus recently published The Jacksons Debate as part of Thrive's publishing initiative, Can Fiction Help Us Thrive? In this thought-provoking novella, we are introduced to the Jacksons, who are ethically conscious beings grappling with humanity's potential as a food source. Through fiction and humor, Marcus helps us explore empathy, cultural norms, and the complexities of sentience. Welcome, Marcus.
Hello, Jennifer. So it's a pleasure for me to be here and talk a little bit about my book that has just arrived, so I can show to the audience a copy
Oh,
of
very
how the book
nice.
looks like. Uh, so anyone who might want to see it and read it, it's very short. It's around 2020, 2005 words. So you can read it probably in around 3 hours. I have received it and I read it in the same day, so 3 hours straight, and I just completed it.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks great. You sent me a digital copy, which I read halfway through so far. It's been the holidays, so we just finished through the holiday season, so it's been a very busy time. But yeah, it's so far been a very easy read, very fun. I really like how you tackle some really deep subjects. But in a fun and creative, lighthearted way as well. It's not a heavy book to read so far, from what
Yeah.
I've read. And yeah, so before we dive deep into your book, can you share a little bit more about you and your vegan story?
So, I am Marcus. I'm 27 years old, and I live in Rio de Janeiro. Have been living here pretty much all my life. There was a time where I lived in Dublin for 6 months, and also 2 years ago, I lived in Portugal with a friend of mine for 3 months. So that's around my experience of living abroad, which is important thing to say because I'll mention it when I'm talking about my vegan journey. So, I am in a relationship with my girlfriend, and it started around 2 years ago. So she was before me already a vegan, and I was already an animal rights activist. So since my graduation, I have been like trying to publish articles about that topic, my work at Thrive, and so on. But still, due to me living with my parents, I was still following more carnivorous diet, omnivorous diet, to be honest, and carnivore, right? So when I started a relationship, she was a vegan, and it made things easier because I had the willingness to follow this diet, but it wasn't possible, and I found it very easy to adapt in terms of my diet and feeling good with my body. I won't lie, I won't say that I felt any sort of bad way with my body before the diet. I wouldn't say anything has changed much. It was just about keeping it the same way. I'm pretty activist person, so I do jiu-jitsu training, and I play tennis, football with my friends, and I felt the same in changing the diet. It just shows that it's possible for people to follow the diet if they follow it in a certain way. It's not an excuse for anyone to not do what they want because they feel like their body. Of course, people have different bodies and will respond differently, but I think it's a way you can adapt to that if that may be the case.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. Usually people do feel a difference, but that the fact that you didn't feel a difference also is important because you can feel healthy if you're already feeling good and in a healthy place, and you get rid of and having animal products, you can still maintain being in that healthy uh, place and feeling good. So yeah, that's really interesting. And it sounds like you kind of had the seeds already planted and wanting to be vegan, but it's challenging. Like I can relate. I wanted to be vegan, and it took me a couple of years to fully transition because I knew my family wouldn't want to. My kids were younger at the time, and um, I knew no one would want to change. My husband, no one would want to, get on board with me, and so I just started cooking and experimenting and trying recipes. For me, it started with dairy. Like I noticed that I wasn't feeling good ingesting dairy, and I started just looking up dairy-free recipes, and I took a break from dairy and I found all these vegan recipes. And I'm a better cook as a vegan than before I was a vegan because it allowed me to explore all these different spices and just cuisines from all over the world, and it just showed me creativity um, with vegetables and plant-based ingredients. And so
Yeah,
I feel like I'm a much better cook now.
yeah, it definitely opens up your horizons in terms of what you're gonna eat. You'll find different plates that you enjoy, and uh, it's a journey, certainly. But one thing I want to mention is that uh, I think the important thing about me not feeling different with my body is that I I don't know if what diet, I'm not a specialist in what diet is better for one to follow. The reason why I think I should follow a vegan diet is for the ethical reason. So the ethical of farming animals and the way animals are treated in society and the way they're not considered. Their suffering is not considered, and that's a big problem for me, and that's the problem I'm talking about. So if I'm here to talk about this problem, not what what I think about the diets, because that's not something I know. I just try to feel good with my body and whatever the diet I'm following. So I think that it's important, and it's important for the vegan movement or animal rights movement to acknowledge that the animal suffering and consideration is in itself a reason for people to change their way of life. So there's no need for someone saying that meat will cause you cancer or anything of that sort of thing. It's not a problem for someone to say that, but if you don't know, you don't need to say that. You don't need to prove it for you to change your diet. The reason we have, which is the ethical one, is enough for one to think of restructuring the way uh, we do things. So that's probably the main thing I'm talking about in most places when I do the advocacy for animals, because it feels like they are a lesser type of being. So people will say something like, "Well, yeah, I am sorry that they are in this situation, but they need some supplementary reasons to find a way of restructuring society." But think that if it were to be humans on that side of the spectrum, they wouldn't be like, uh, so humans are, we shouldn't do anything to them because they suffer and so on, but also the eating their meat is bad for our health. That it doesn't matter. What matters is us preserving ways of lives that are out there and coexisting with the world peacefully.
Yeah, and that's what led me to committing to veganism finally because I wanted to originally feel better and take care of my health. And then as I dove deep into the ethical reasons, that's what helped me commit. And I've been vegan now for almost 8 years. And that's what helped me commit to it. And I think a lot of people who I've spoken to a lot of vegans over the past a little bit over a year since I've had the Confident Vegan. And a lot of people either jump in for the ethical reasons or they start off because of the health that exposes them to veganism, but then it always ends up being that, whatever your gateway is to getting in there, what keeps everyone committed is realizing the ethics. I think, we growing up in a society where it's acceptable to eat animal products, we have this cognitive dissonance where we know where meat comes from, we don't think too deeply about it. And then once I started thinking deeply about it, that's when I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I found a way. And so yeah, and that's why I talk to different vegans on my channel, because there's so many different ways. Everyone has so many unique experiences that bring them to this lifestyle. And it's great hearing everyone's journey and perspective on it. So yeah, I'm really excited to dive a little more on your book. Can you share what inspired you to write the Jackson debate?
Yeah, so the what I had have just mentioned is definitely a reason is that the ethical reason in itself is why people should do whatever they do, because I'm not saying that they should eat animals or not eat animals. It's just the way they perceive animals. So I was thinking of a way of trying to get people to look from their perspective, which I think that's probably the main reason why the structure we have around us don't consider animals. Probably because we don't, like you said, we don't think of how the food came into a plate. We just eat it as if it were not previously alive. So, uh, I was like at the University of Sussex, so I was doing the Masters in Sustainable Development. All the essays I was writing, I was like connecting the frameworks with uh, animal rights or better animal welfare or supply chains and things like that. So I I wrote like big article. It was called Venturing Beyond Human Rights. And in that article, I kind of framed the way that we treat animals at this time will probably be seen in the future as genocide or something like that, like something as outrageous as all of these things that we look back and think how outrageous was that? How did humans come to do that before? How did they accept it? So this is probably happening all the time. And in the future, when one look back to the past, they will see things they wouldn't accept in their future time. So I was kind of predicting that it would go like that. But I felt like the academics that I was talking about wasn't too receptive of stating that in the article and having their names attached to it because uh, it's probably too radical or too assertive of an idea to say. Uh, Probably because of the bureaucratics of academic, how it works, how you have to prove every statement you make, and this is a moral statement, not a factual statement I'm saying. So how will I support it? So I thought let's do it another way. So I was getting these responses. They were like responding to me, why not? Or why some would be like pro a carnivore diet or pro the way society works. And some would tell me that we don't we don't have our values from facts. We have it from our morals, and our morals comes from a different place, and probably from religion. It's where most of the Western morals have been built. So yeah, it's in fact it doesn't come from the facts of nature. It hasn't been like that in the past. So although I think it should be more like that, for now in the future, it's not how it works. So I was like, okay, I'll do this book, and like I'll go step by step because I'm not a writer and I don't know if I can write a fiction book, so that I'll try to do my best. And like I was like thinking of the concept, how it would be like. So I thought doing it in a satirical manner, like the aliens would be all funny and having digs of very different types of society. So it's kind of a societary commentary book. So they're commenting on the humans. They are seeing the humans and they're like commenting it. So they are looking specifically like it's important that we know that humans are animals too. So they are a part of this biological uh sphere that there is in the universe. And if you were an alien looking at humans, they wouldn't think of humans more specially than they would think of the different beings on Earth. They would just think of us as beings on Earth. So they would look at the unique things of humans in this ecosystem that they are in, and they would look at the things that only humans do. And they would like humans are we look at ourselves and we are proud of what we do that is different from what animals do. So we wear our clothes, we have our cars that move us from a place to another, and we have our waste management ways of doing things. So we have all these different things that only humans do. So the aliens look at that and they think that is all weird because when they look of to life all around them, they don't see it. They they see life like having some things behaving very much the same way. So elephants, squirrels, they will all do things in a certain way, and humans will specifically do it in a different way. So they would like think that humans are less in connection with what life means than the other beings around. So they start thinking that humans are irrational. Humans have probably a glitch, some error in their system at the same time. So I wanted to make it for them to have a reason to be considering other food sources. They are super ethical. They consider themselves to be ethical. And that's a parallel to us because if we look at our legislations, our our religions, our morals, we consider ourselves to be ethical, to have ethics as a guideline for us to behave ourselves. So, and we probably not. And these aliens are probably not, because consider oneself to be ethical so it's too complex, it's too untouchable. You can put your finger on that. So the aliens consider themselves to be ethical just to make this parallel to how humans consider themselves to be, and they end up considering like what to do with the humans. So that was like the whole concept of the book.
Yeah, and I liked how you found ways to talk about these deep things, um, but in a way that's fun and entertaining to read. And I think these are things that we don't normally pause and think about, right? We're so busy on automatic pilot. A lot of the time, we don't stop and think about where our food comes from, the whole process with our technology. I remember reading, they thought we were so wasteful with our technology and our clothing, how you know, everything just seemed very impractical. And so it was interesting seeing human behavior through the views of these aliens because when you step outside of yourself and you see things, you see things differently. And for them, everything is about practicality. It seems like they're a race that's very much on harmony. They're very thoughtful. They seem very respectful about the animal creatures on their planet. And so when they see how disrespectful humans are and wasteful, um, it's something that seems to really perplex them because it's so different from the way they go about society.
Yeah, so that's way like if you think of like the standard science fiction like film that aliens would come and consider eating humans, we wouldn't like necessarily think of them as ethical. We would think like of a domination. They would come here and just extract our resources and do whatever they want. But in that case, I want to make the reader feel like, okay, they are trying to be ethical and they are trying to have their morals upheld, and still they are trying to kill they are considering the possibility of eating us. So it might be that we are not as special as we consider ourselves to be, and these defining characteristics that we have, that is like the technology and so on, that makes us that make it possible for us to control like the world resources, and that we consider ourselves to be so superior for that reasons. It might be that the aliens look at that and they're not so impressed by that. They're like, why are you doing that? By doing it, you're just overextending your planet's capabilities. You're not being responsible to the planet you have around you. So that's something I think the book is, and it's not like for most of the readers that I had so far, like the book has just been launched, so it's not even a month. But from the readers I have so far that came and bought the book and read it, I I see that most of them come from this animal rights background, which is the main reason for the book. But I feel like I wanted to reach a more sustainable development at all audience, because the book's not only about animal rights, it's about the critiques the aliens have for the way that we treat our planet. Because if we look the whole time the Earth has been around, humans are at the top like for a very short amount of time, and we are not being responsible with that short amount of time we have in control of the planet. Like we can say that, I don't know, 10,000 years is around the time that humans are in control, and it that has been enough for us to get the planet into chaos. So all species are going to extinction, and we're like destroying forests and so on. So why would the aliens that are thinking of preserving they are all sustainable with their planets, why would they look at us and think we are the best beings that live on Earth? They would probably not think that of us, because we are probably the beings that cause more destructions in the
Mm-hmm.
planet. So why do we consider ourselves to be so special? And that is probably what many people will say for how to us what should we do to get in harmony with the planet. That is about connecting with the planet, connecting with the biodiversity, and understanding that we are part of it and not something outside just extracting and exploiting. Because
Yeah,
that's
and
what we are.
oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we are, just extracting, exploiting, and only thinking about ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the book helps us just be more thoughtful about our actions, right? It helps because we know, again, we don't normally stop and think. And yeah, it's a great book if you want to promote animal rights. But there's it doesn't have to only be that focus. And I feel like there's a lot of value on it in just being intentional, thoughtful, bringing harmony and balance to the planet because I think we think the planet is just always going to be able to sustain our behavior. But, at some point, resources will run out. And the more we can do to help prevent that depletion so quickly, the better life will be in the future. And yeah, I think, it's so important to think about these things and again also about the environment, the environmental implications of our behavior. another point I wanted to bring back, it makes me think about how the other animal species on our planet, they have their own societies. Like I've seen documentaries about ants and insects and bees, and they have their own communities. Like they have their own hierarchy, their own society. Everyone has a way of being, and to them, that it's kind of like they're aliens on our planet, right? Like this is, all the other animals, they have their own way of communicating, they have their own way of interacting and building community. And who are we to, feel it's okay to destroy them or take advantage of them just because we think differently and just because we have a different type of consciousness doesn't mean that they're less worthy, because within their society they have their own structures and way of coexisting.
Yeah, that definitely. And so I would say, like, if you look at the book, it's called A Debate, and I just explained the reasons why the aliens are considering eating the humans, or having humans as a food resource, which is they don't think of humans as rational or superior beings as humans see themselves. That's the reasons why they would you use humans as a food resources. But the other side of the equation is the precautionary principle, which is something that the aliens have so strongly into their way of interacting with the external world. So that is something that we should have more, because there's much we don't know. Most of the things we don't know about the consciousness of other beings. We actually don't know enough about our own consciousness. So that's something that is deeply being studied and discussed, how consciousness, how it comes to be, how it emerges consciousness. We don't actually know. Science don't have an answer to that question, not even for humans. So why would we assume that we are the only ones that are conscious enough to not be exploited? So that's something that you might have seen this chapter, which is called the scales of sentience. So they're like, so are we going to eat them and so on? And they try to measure what beings are more and less sentient. So that's like a dig at how we do things here, because we assume that we are the most sentient being on the whole planet, and the others are not as sentient as we are, and therefore we can do whatever we want to them and not do anything to ourselves because we are so sentient and secret.
Hmm.
So that's something that we should be inspired by the aliens, because if we are considering to do anything that is bad to someone or some being that we don't know much about, we should be precautionary. So we should consider them. We should think, oh, how do they feel? What is this experience like for them? Think of the pigs, for example. What is the experience like for the pigs to be treated the way we treat them? So even if we are to farm them, if there is some consideration, like in legislation at least, like, to officially impede people to farm them and have them all packed in farms and being treated that way to only be a food source, things would be much better if it were required that they would have a certain standard of life. But the worst thing of it all is that they are not even considered. They are considered by like me, you, and people who are activists, but in the mainstream, they are not even
Yeah.
considered. And that's the worst part.
Yeah, and it's challenging. I'm the only vegan in my family. So when I go to family functions, I have family members who will, who are curious. They'll ask questions from curiosity. And then I get the other family members, well, I could never do that. And they're here for us to eat. And, I get all the typical comments and things that, I've gotten better at navigating. But still it's annoying. But yeah, it's who are we to think that we're superior to these other beings? And the other beings on our planet, they do live in harmony. Everything has a purpose. Like I once saw a documentary many years ago about how figs grow on this fig tree. And there's this whole ecosystem on this fig tree. The birds, the wasps, every little thing has a purpose on this tree, and all of these creatures know their role and they all support the ecosystem that eventually creates the fruit of the fig. And so that's the thing. Everything, who's to say that we're better than they are? We're different, and maybe that's something to think about. Instead of thinking that we're better, we're just different. They have a different way of being, and we have a different way of being. But that doesn't mean that we have the right to go, you know, tear down their, way of living just because we feel like we're superior. And I think this book really thoughtfully brings that perspective again in a fun way that I feel like this book would be great for like class discussions, high schoolers, just to, have these types of just critical thinking, right? I think it's a great book that promotes critical thinking in a fun way.
That's why I had the scales of sentence chapter, because for the reader to go like, hang on, who are these guys to be determining in a measuring stick who is the most sentient being? How ridiculous is that for someone to go and say, oh, this is 9 out of 10 sentient and this is 4? So how ridiculous does that sound if you are one of the beings being considered? So if that person has this thought process and is uncomfortable with uh, aliens considering how sentient we are, they will probably go like, "Oh, hang on, we are doing exactly that to the other beings on Earth." So
Yeah.
if you stop and think, we have hierarchies of how we treat the animals still. Like we like at least in Western society, we love the dogs and we hate the pigs. And why is that? Yeah, probably because of like the first question I posed, which is from where we derive our morals, and it's definitely not from the facts of life, not from the facts of science, because there's certainly nothing in science that says that a dog is more special than a pig. It's just
Yeah.
because we structured society in that way. So that's something that I wanted to raise for people to go and come from a different angle and reflect on that. And I don't expect that people will change the way of life, but just have the seed planted in their minds and having some introspection all of the questions. It's a way of presenting to someone also that don't know what's discussed within the like animal rights community and what they're trying to push forward and so on, so they can get familiarized with the discussions that happens like in the real world with an entertaining side. So that's that's like the goal from the book.
Yeah, I think so far from what I read, you've done a really great job. I'm looking forward to finish reading it. It's been a lot of fun reading it so far and has been very thought-provoking. So, yeah, before we wrap up, is there anything else you wanted to share about your book?
So just say that, especially if you are in the US, Canada, UK, and Australia, it's very easy to get your hands on the book. It will probably arrive at your house like in a week, and like it's a short book. I try to make it as cheap as I possibly could. So the prices vary, but it will probably be around $10 and $20 to anyone that might want that. So you just type the Jackson's debate on Amazon or Google, and it's gonna be very easy to find it. It's all around.
Great. And I'll also include a link in the notes below this video. So if you want to check out the Jackson's debate and purchase your own copy, you can easily do so.
Yeah, there is the link for Thrive Publishing, which is where the book has been published, which is a not-for-profit Australian organization that promotes sustainable development and the concept of thrivability. So, if anyone might be interested, you can find the book there on the fiction section of the site, but you can also find other materials that we do there. So, I have personally written an article there, which is for the greater need of recognizing animal sentience. So that is not a funny article, it's more like a formal academic writing style. So that is something for if anyone might like. You can also um, have a read and other people go there and write about other sustainable development topics. So it might be that you find it interesting.
Great. I'll make sure to include the link for that as well. So this way viewers can find it easily. Well,
Yeah.
Marcus, it was really nice having you here today. Thank you for coming here to talk about your book. What's a good way for people to connect with you?
So I would probably say people can try to connect me anywhere, but LinkedIn is probably where I do most of my promotion, where I promote my articles, my books, everything that I'm doing. I'll be posting there and trying to find easy ways for people to access it through my page. So definitely LinkedIn is the best way. And I want to also mention that I respond to everyone that comes and ask me questions about the book or any other material that I'm developing. So you just feel free to reach out to me like on DMs or comment or anything. So super
Great.
open.
I'll also include your LinkedIn
Yeah.
information below as well, so people can reach out to you. Well, thanks again for coming on here today. It was really great chatting with you, and I highly recommend anyone watching to check out the Jackson debate. It's an entertaining way to just think about life in general and how we make decisions and how we can be much more thoughtful humans. So. Uh, all right. Well, thanks again, Marcus, and thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye for
Thank you,
now.
Jennifer. Bye bye.